Okay. Well, thank you for everyone for joining us. Thank you, and I feel like an ass. But please, could you remind me what your name is?
My name's Erin. Erin
Aaron.
McGean.
Gotcha. Aaron.
Yeah.
Nice
Also
to
known
meet
as
you, Aaron.
Lifewithart. Nice to meet you too, Mark.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time to come today. Ever since I saw your, I guess, mosaic. How do I put it?
Yeah,
Mosaic
that's a good way.
collages. Yeah.
Hmm.
Ever since I saw them, I don't know. There's something about that style that really just captures the attention because it also reminded me of a piece that I saw by an artist by the name of David Hoffos. Do you know him?
No, looking him up. David Hoffos.
Yes, he has one that I saw at an art fair in Toronto recently called Surf Couple, where it was this big
Oh,
piece.
wow. Oh, very cool.
Yeah,
Yep.
and he would like miniaturize some aspects of it, so it wasn't like just necessarily like a tessellation.
Right.
But I really liked how he played with perspective there.
And this is hand cut collage too. You can kind of tell at the top, right? It's
Hmm.
it's not digital.
Yeah, this photo would have been like a scan or something, I figure. But yeah, yeah. I saw this at an art fair, I think last year or so, and then when I
Mm,
stumbled upon your art, I was like, oh, that hits on a very similar note.
for sure. Yeah, we're using the exact same technique in some of our works for sure. Which, you know what, actually, I've come across quite a few collage artists who are using this technique. Um, so that's interesting. It's funny because, like, I'm sure I see things and then they go into my subconscious, and then I kind of make something like it, and I end up like tapping into this collective unconsciousness where, and then I'm like, oh wait, like this has been done. And that actually really frustrates me. I mean, it's really hard to find something that's never been done, but that's kind of what I'm searching for.
Impossible task, a Sisyphean task, if I might say so.
Yeah, it is. But I'm getting there. Like, I'm doing something now that has come from cutting these little squares, and I definitely just gravitate towards geometry and symmetry and clean line collages. Um, I think I'm getting there. I've been doing something recently that's, that came out of using little squares, but I feel like it might be more of an um, original take. Oh wow, you're on my website. Okay. I gotta close up a page. I was working on it last night. I'm trying to set up uh possibly having like live bidding right on my page, but
Oh,
very
right on.
hard. Yeah. Getting there. Luckily with chat, I'm using chat to help me do some back end coding.
Oh, like ChatGPT.
uh, yeah, using chat to help me do some back end coding on my website. Hopefully have, I mean, you can't bid right on my website, but at least you can see like the current bid and the running time, and then link right to the manifold auction page. So yeah, I was playing around with that last night, but I had the page live, but I just closed it, so you can't see it now.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but interesting. Trying to do something new. Like, do you really think it's impossible?
I don't think it's impossible. I just think that it's I don't think it's the right like thing to focus on just because like
Right.
fundamentally everything that has been done or that can ever be done has like already been done in terms of like artistic expression.
Mm-hmm.
Like obviously like
Mm-hmm.
okay, like we can discover like new elements or create new technology, sure, but in regards to artistic expression, just about every story about the human condition has been told, and so
Yeah.
everything else is kind of an iteration of it. And I'm not saying that that has like a negative or like a positive quality to it. It's just that's the state of things. So
Yeah.
because everything is an inspiration or is a result of the inspiration that came before it, there's not really like I mean, unless like you were able to create art in some kind of alien language that we're not familiar with, but exists out there in space somehow, then okay, yeah, sure, like that's that's entirely unique. But barring that, it's I don't know if it's something that's worthwhile focusing on, at least like for my perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, you're probably right. Um, yeah, I don't know why I get frustrated. Sometimes when I guess just want, like most artists, you want your work to be distinct. You want it to stand out. You want people to recognize it in some way. And, rather than kind of, I don't know, I feel like the easy way sometimes is just like sticking with a consistent color scheme. Um, and I'd rather kind of go beyond that in a way and just have the way I guess cut images up be very distinctive and recognizable. But yeah, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. So, but I think you bring up a good point about that, the human condition. I teach art as well. One of the things I tell my students is that maybe one of the things that you can do that's new and that's never been done is really tapping into like current affairs.
Yeah, that's certainly one way to go about it, but another kind of perspective could
But
be
even
that
that,
yeah, another perspective could
go
be
ahead.
that. Oh, did you cut out there?
No, I'm good.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Another perspective could be that because you're one of one and there's not a copy of yourself, everything that you create is original in that context.
Very true. I like that.
Yeah. And so collage work, has that always been something that you've kind of gravitated towards, or is it just something that you stumbled upon as a medium?
Something I stumbled upon as a medium probably about 15, a bit more than 15 years ago. I used to paint, do acrylic and oil paintings a lot, and then I kind of didn't do any art for a while, mostly because of just what was going on in my life. I was too busy, um, career and starting a family and stuff. But then I joined Instagram very early, and it was very much just an artist community at first. Pretty much everybody I interacted with on Instagram was an artist of some kind. So it really awakened my past practice. But instead of jumping right back into painting, I was just like making a lot of digital things on my phone, and really enjoyed that for, I'd say, a good 4 or 5 years. Just posting on Instagram and making like digital edits of photos I took. And those edits just got more and more extreme to the point that they kind of started looking very collage like. And then I got kind of bored of making art on my phone, and I was missing really like the mess and the tactile environment of like studio work of physical materials.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, so it was like, I don't know why I didn't think of it, but it was actually my husband who said, well, why don't you just do some real collages now? I'm like, oh my God, why didn't I think of that? And literally kind of started that day, just with whatever random magazines we had in the house, and was like instantly hooked.
Interesting. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's a bit of a roundabout way of getting to that. And most of your work now, is it still like in the digital space, or do you spend like 1 foot in and 1 foot out on both mediums?
Yeah, I do like a little bit of both. The collages that I first made back like 15 years ago, they were really poorly cut. And as I said at the beginning, I don't gravitate towards collages that actually look really vintage and Victorian and have like torn edges and rough shapes and organic shapes and stuff. I can appreciate it, but I don't like creating that. I prefer hard edge, straight, more graphic kind of looking works.
Mm-hmm.
And even like when I painted in high school, I would paint like skyscrapers, like with, like I was always drawn to pattern and straight lines and clean lines. So when I started to make collages, I didn't cut very well, didn't cut very cleanly, didn't know all the kind of tips and tricks. And so I really was making them to digitize them. So I would make a collage kind of haphazardly, photograph it. I wasn't even using a scanner then. I would just photograph it and then use Photoshop to kind of clean it up, increase the contrast, right? Saturation, whatever, like just make it look better. And
Mm-hmm.
so at that time, I was kind of thinking of my collages almost like a negative, like a photographic negative. And, the digital post processing would really make that collage come to life. The problem with that, I mean, it was fine for social media and I was, enjoying the endorphin rush of getting lots of likes and I was doing really well on Instagram for a while. Um, and that was enough. But then I wanted to, start branching out, showing the work, bringing it to galleries, and I was shut down by galleries like right away. I was trying to
Really?
basically, yeah, I was trying to sell prints of these pieces and they were like, well, what is this? And I'm like, well, it's a collage, but then I like digitally altered it and now I've printed it. And they're like, I remember one woman said, well, if you'd come in with the actual collage, you probably would have gotten to the show, but we don't know what this is and we don't know if you've just copied it or it's just, like digital. And like, back about 15 years ago, like it was really hard to get any digital art into any kind of show, a
Hmm.
print of your digital illustration or your whatever. Like it was nearly impossible. I think now they're a lot more open to it, but so I kind of had that feedback from a few different places and it pushed me then to start affecting my collage technique so I could show the actual collages in galleries.
And have you had any successful showings this yet?
Yeah, I have. So that definitely worked. But then, now it's kind of come around where there is an interest, a curiosity for digital art. So now I'm kind of just, yeah, like you said, like putting my energy into both a little bit. Um, just yeah, exploring things. Sometimes I still like to have just a straight physical collage and it never is digitized. Sometimes I still like to do what I used to do, which is altering it. Or sometimes I just create now digital collage as well. So I'm doing a bit of everything, I guess.
Gotcha. And what kind of a scanner would you even use to like to scan some of these things? I mean, I'm sure the collages like aren't like several meters by several meters across, but most scanners don't like they just kind of fit like a single page.
They do, but most collages are just a single page, right? Because you're working with magazines and books, and
Mm,
most of my collages have fit on the scanner, but it's a like 11 by 14 or something like that. Just a regular flatbed scanner. If my pieces are larger, and now I am making larger pieces, I have some pieces that are like 3 by 4 feet. Um, I have to scan it in sections and piece it together in Photoshop.
I see. I see.
Mhm,
And when it
mhm.
comes to the actual process of making these collages, how how do you go about picking like what what tile is next? Is there like a sequential pattern that you know works to create some kind of like a not an optical illusion, but like a trick of the eye, or is it just like you go by feeling, or
Yeah, for the little squares and the mosaic type collages, they're all, using some kind of like system, some kind of regular system. Like the example of David's work that you showed me. Like that's a very regular kind of system where you take whatever six of the same image and you slice it into strips
Mhm.
and then you kind of alternate them in a regular pattern and then you slice that like so you might slice it vertically first, glue them together as strips, and then slice them horizontally. And yeah, it's a very kind of like regulated like pattern, almost an algorithm in a way. Um, yeah, so really what, I'm doing now is I've just graduated from using one image to using like multiple images, but using the same kind of like systematic approach to how I organize them then.
I see. I see. Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, because these are it's no, it's just recalling what you said earlier about like the pieces being unique. I know of like other collage artists, but
Hmm.
the chances of doing something like exactly like yourself are like 1 in a trillion. And that's what initially drew me about your art, is that even though I'd seen like David Hoffa's work and it reminded me of it, it's still
Hmm.
very singular because um, your collage style, I've noticed, it doesn't stick with just like having an image split into cubes. You have this flower series that I was looking at earlier. Uh,
Hmm.
where's the there was a couple of them.
Yeah.
There they are. Yes,
Hmm.
where you have uh, part of it is figure, part of it is an image of a flower, but the way that they blend into one another, it's very smooth, very seamless transition. This one
Hmm.
especially.
Hmm. Yeah, that's inspired by oh, what is his name? Famous collage artist from early 1900s, mid 1900s. Let me see. I know I've got his stuff here. Um, yeah, if you go on my highlights page, like 4 posts down, I have this ongoing thread that I talk about some inspirations that I've taken from the past, and yeah, one guy here is Yuri Kohler.
Mm-hmm.
He's really done a lot of the stripes that I've used before, kind of cutting it into stripes and then like flipping them or rotating them outwards. Um, Man Ray even did a lot of collages with squares and stripes. But no, the one I'm thinking about, where is he? Let's see, he's down a little bit further. A lot of people have heard of him. John Stiesager.
John Stiesager. Let's take a look.
Yes. Yeah. Um, and so, yeah, I must have seen his collages somewhere. And he does just 2 images. And actually, I was seeing even things like this on Instagram that kind of inspired me. There was somebody who was really famous on Instagram, really more of a content creator, but they were taking like famous sculptures of Venus and putting like just a circle over part of the face, and that circle had like Beyonce's face in it or Rihanna's face in it. So, I mean, it's a kind of a popular style that was going on from the past, but kind of had a resurgence in social media. So I think that's probably what was inspiring it a little bit. But I was using female figures and flowers, more like just kind of finding a nice nude, putting flowers all around it, like multiple flowers from different photos, which in a way is, now looking back, is kind of overdone as well. Um,
Is it?
and then I feel like it is, just because you see like these like Frida Kahlo kind of inspired like a woman's head with like a crown of flowers. Things in art, the problem is, especially with social media, they become popular, but then they become cliche because they just become overdone. And that's just my opinion. I had an art teacher who would talk about cliche all the time. It was like her favorite word. Um, and maybe that's why I'm so driven to like find something new. Maybe it was my art teacher who really drilled that into our heads,
Hmm.
that, like, skulls are cliche, like rose and thorns are cliche, like all these things she would say, like, don't do this and don't do that, and don't do like a sunshine in the corner and don't do like a moon in the background.
Wow,
um,
that is far
yeah.
too restricting than I'm comfortable with.
I know it kind of is now that you say that, it kind of is. And thinking back to all my art teachers, they were all kind of restrictive in their own way.
Hmm.
So yeah. Um, but that actual series to me is my best work yet, because it just resonates with me so deeply. It happened by accident where there was kind of a full page nude on my desk, and there was like a half cut picture of a vase of flowers, and I just kind of put them together, and I was like, oh, those really like speak to each other. They seem like they belong together. And I instantly fell in love with the way it looked. Then I became obsessed with finding more matches. And the funny thing about that series is it's really just two books as well. It's like this book of nudes and this book of like house plants. And it was
Hmm.
during COVID. And so I think it really spoke to how I was feeling during COVID, because the women in all these flower pieces, they're very well, one person said to me they feel stuck, like they feel like they can't move. And so I think that was a little bit of how I was feeling, during COVID. Um, and I was really tapped into kind of my domestic role during COVID. I mean, I'm always, doing my domestic duties, so to speak, but, they were heightened during COVID, where like the whole family's home, we're all home, it's like, what's for lunch, what's for dinner, what's for breakfast, what,
Hmm.
like it was just like I felt like my whole life just really revolved around like taking care of the house. And then I'm looking through these like 1970s house and home magazines of like Susie Homemaker, and I was just really feeling that kind of moment of I don't know, my role as a mother, as a wife, um and yeah, in my domestic duties. And I've always had a little bit of an interest kind of in um the objectification of women in media, in photography, and whatever, just generally in the world, the kind of patriarchal view of women that we mostly see.
Yeah, and I do love this series. So hats off on all the work for it. You mentioned that you were using these 1970s magazines. Um, is there like a certain type of magazine or like a brand that you find is like easiest to source material from? Are there any specifics, or just kind of whatever lands in your lap?
um I like Life magazine. I mean, at first I had a lot of National Geographic is great,
Hmm.
and I still have a ton, but I find I don't use them anymore very much, because, and again, this is this weird obsession I have with trying to be different. You see a lot of collage artists use the same pages from the same National Geographic magazine. So I'll look at other people's collage art. I'll be like, oh my god, I've used that image before. I've used that
Hmm.
image before. I've used that image before. And it's kind of neat to see like the different ways you use it. But you literally see like four or five artists who will use this one image, like I don't know, from a certain copy that just must be really available everywhere, and everybody, because they look for the nice full page, colorful images. So we're all going to gravitate towards these nice full page, beautiful images, right? Like we're going to choose nice images to make our collages out of. So I kind of stopped with that. Then I really liked the Life magazine because they were bigger. So they made my collages bigger, but the quality of the paper is very thin and kind of hard to cut sometimes. So honestly, now I prefer books. I prefer to cut up books.
Oh,
Books have
like books of photography.
yeah, old photography books, old portrait books. The You Don't Bring Me Flowers series, as I was saying, those came mostly from one book. That was a book I found on eBay by a photographer named John Everrude. And when I discovered that book, I went back on eBay and I looked for more, and he had a whole series, and they're called like artist model. the Artist Model 2, and it's really just a book full of like honestly 100 like nudes of women posing. It's like, oh my god, this is gold.
No,
And
you
so
can get
then
it on
I,
Amazon.
yeah, yeah, I mean, now I can't find them actually for any really good deal. At first I was able to find them for like $30 each. Now every time I come across one, they're like over $100. So I think I kind of lucked out. So I pretty much bought as many of his works as I have. About 4 different books he had. I'm pretty sure I have all his major books. And yeah, so that's what I use. I use mostly his books for my nudes. And then I buy a lot of like Hollywood, old Hollywood portrait books and stuff like that. Um, so like that piece that you have there right now, like that's a scan from a book I have. But with that piece, I really want bigger collages. Like the one thing I hated about switching to collage was the size. When I painted big. Like I had, like 6 by 8 foot paintings, and
Hmm.
I really did love like bigger is better to me in a way. Sometimes with art, um, I hated that collages were small. That was another reason why I wanted to always just print them, because I wanted to print them super large so you could see the print grain and everything. Um, so with this piece, what I did is I scanned it, and then I ordered some nice prints, and then cut the prints up for the collage so that I could have a large collage in the end to exhibit.
Yeah, I was thinking to myself, I was like, man, eventually, like, aren't you worried you're gonna run out of, all these like old magazines and all the source material? And then I realized, oh yeah, you could just scan it, you dummy, and then just print
Yeah,
it, and then
yeah.
cut and paste it.
A lot of the time, if I really like an image, I will scan it before I cut it up. Or I'll scan it, print a like, crappy just draft, and cut that to practice. Like I often do kind of cut like a practice version, or like make like a rough draft out of like a crappy printout.
Do you find that you have to restart the process on occasion, or was that just like simply part of the growing pains before, and now you've kind of got a process down and it's not an issue anymore?
No, sometimes I still have to restart. Sometimes I still like F up even though I've, practiced and planned it. Sometimes I just start cutting too quickly and my knife just goes where it's not supposed to go. And it's sometimes really frustrating where I'll be like, okay, I've completely ruined this. There's literally no saving it. Start again.
Yeah, and I mean, I figure it's just it's a matter of layering, and it can get easy at times to kind of get caught up in the making of the image, like especially with like something like as distorted as this, where like every line that you place has to be so like precise and exact in order. I guess it helps like if you like number the like little slits of paper so that that you know exactly where everything goes. Is there like a system like that, or?
Yeah, sometimes I don't number them much, but I'll just like when I cut them, I'll be very careful to kind of keep them laid out in an order. Um, put them on a board and just keep it organized that way. But, again, that's another mistake I've made where sometimes the cutting has gone perfectly, and then the assembly, again, I get into a flow, I start going too fast, I'm gluing things down, and I all of a sudden realize I've glued one piece the wrong way, upside down or out
Hmm.
of order. Um, there's ways to fix that. Sometimes you can recut it and glue it on a new piece of paper. Um, yeah, I found ways to kind of get around it.
Yep.
Numbering,
Close all the
no,
windows, no
I'm probably
pets.
too lazy for numbering. It's more just laying it down and hoping it doesn't get out of order as I lay it down.
Yeah, no gusts of wind, no pets.
No, that's funny you said that because I did think of that. I do have a couple cats, and they have ruined my lay downs. I call them floaters. I have a lot of floaters in my studio.
Hmm.
Like I'm looking at one right now, and yeah, the cat will jump up on that table and maybe walk on them and disturb the order for sure. It's happened.
Well, sounds about right.
Yeah.
And so, in terms of learning this style, did it just come through like enough practice, or did you manage to find someone to train under? Like, how did this kind of come about for you?
Yeah, this particular technique, I saw another artist on Instagram doing this, and so I tried it myself. Yeah, there's a Japanese collage artist named Kensuke. Oh, I can never say his name right. Let's see, I got it here. Kensuke Koike?
Koike? Yep.
Yeah, yeah, he was a big inspiration for me. Now, I had been doing collage for quite a while when I discovered him, but I was starting to gravitate towards just like stripes and like just kind of more very simple collages. And um, like with the You Don't Bring Me Flowers series, like that was when my collages started becoming more simple in terms of like now I'm just using two images, where before I was using like a lot, like multiple images. Um, You Don't Bring Me Flowers kind of pared it down to two. And then when I saw his technique of really just using one image, and even calls it that, he calls it like single image processing um, on his Instagram, I was really inspired by that. And so I started experimenting with kind of single image processing. And then I was, of course, drawn to his use of like geometric shapes as well.
Yeah, I like how it's every piece you have no idea where, like, which shape it's gonna go. I mean, creating this kind of 3D feeling with this one, um, he would have had to have been like extremely precise with uh, the the cutouts that he uses in order to make the image, because the way that the light hits will all affect, like, he clearly put like the darker tones at the bottom to make sure that they kind of like accentuate like a shadow, whether you see it as inverted or otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's another artist as well. I kind of at first thought, well, like he's the first person I've seen do this, but then I came across another artist, a female artist who had been doing the same thing for even longer than he had.
I
Let
didn't
me see if I
realize that
can find.
collage art had such a vast array of artists within the space.
I know, neither did I until I kind of really got into it and you start doing the deep dives and there's a couple books that had been put out, a couple really good books. They have kind of a lot of the prominent collage artists in them. One of them is called, let's see, I have it right here. The Art of Collage. Really big, nice hardcover book. And like, do you know Jesse Draxler?
Can't say I'm familiar.
Okay. His work is really popular. He's in the Twitter space. Like he's in that book. Several other artists that I admire are in that book. So it's big, but it's also kind of small because like most collage artists I know, like I'll find them in these books. So it's like, why aren't I in one of these books? Many of us. Yeah, so it's neat though. It's a neat little community. There's a big community actually in New Orleans. There's a magazine called Collage with a K. Have you ever heard of it?
Can't say I have,
Uh,
but let's give it a look.
yeah, Aolaj, and like that's a great collage community that I've been a little bit involved in. Um, And so you definitely start to see a lot of the same names pop up. So it's big, but it's also kind of small at the same time. I'm sure it's a smaller community than, say, like oil painters. Like there's so many oil painters, right?
Yeah, there's there's a never-ending stream of artists in this space. Huh.
That's true. Um, are you checking out Jesse? Sorry, I'm looking for this other artist I want to tell you about.
No, I'm on the front page of the Collage magazine.
Oh
Just
yeah,
as I'm scrolling, every issue has like a new like piece that
yeah,
is unique to its own style, and it's just all encompassing.
yeah. And they also have they have a yearly um, what would you call it? I guess a conference or gathering of some kind in New Orleans where they do a lot of workshops and events, gallery showings. Yeah, so it's good to see that there's an active community
Yeah, and
behind
I do
collage.
see Jesse's page here. I don't see
You must.
the collage. Oh, yeah, I do see some collage elements here. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. Those his collages and he's one who's inspired me too, in a way because his collages are so big. And so he definitely works with printouts. I think he might take his own photographs as well and then print them out, and he makes very large scale collages, and he's done very, very well in the collage community.
Yeah, probably goes to like a Kinko's or something, a professional printer to get that size. Cause yeah, I don't know of
Yep.
any like household printers that you can buy for that.
No. Yeah. Yeah. My problem with printouts, because even as the one I showed you earlier, you showed earlier there, I don't trust it. I don't
No?
trust the quality of the print to last long. And for me, there's something special about knowing that the original old piece of paper is part of the work.
What do you mean by it won't last long?
Well, I mean, I've done research and I've said like, how long will these prints last? And they're like, well, like if you get a printout at say Staples, like a poster size print, like it says in the fine print, like won't fade for 2 years, right? So what happens after 2 years? It's going to fade. If it's getting sunlight on it, it's definitely going to fade. So I just feel like a lot of printouts, they won't hold up over time as much as like actual pages from magazines and books.
So is it just like the quality of paper, the quality of the ink that they use, like it's different at like a Staples or Kinko's versus like a professional publishing house? Is that what kind of sets
Yeah,
them apart?
yeah, I think so.
Hmm.
And there's just like, and I have a really good printer. It makes really good Gleesy prints. And I've ordered like the highest quality ones that they have. I've ordered the low quality, I've ordered the highest quality ones. And when I cut those up, like it's just not the same. Like it just doesn't feel the same to me. Um, the sheen of the paper, um, like for me, a lot of what I like about what I do is that I take something old and I make it look kind of modern.
Mm-hmm.
And I find when I take a print, it doesn't, now that old part isn't coming through as much. Like the image might look old, but the paper looks new. And there's something about that that just doesn't sit well with me.
Oh, I'm fair enough.
So, yeah, so I'm trying to just stick with using original vintage materials.
And have you noticed like any difference in quality like working with like modern materials? Just in terms of like how good the colors come out or the quality of the paper. Have you noticed any differences there, or have you still mostly stuck with like prints that are pre-2000s?
Do you mean like magazines or books from the past versus like early, like more modern magazines?
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious to know if you've noticed like a difference if you've worked with magazines like before the 2000s and then afterwards. Like if there's
Right.
quality of paper or what have you.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely noticed differences. Even in like National Geographic, they definitely switched the paper and the ink in like I'd say in about the 50s. The paper got thinner. The ink probably got a little bit healthier. Like I actually wear gloves and a mask when I look through a lot of older books and magazines because I'm kind of worried, and I've done a little research, and there could be like lead-based inks in some of these magazines. And if not
Oh,
lead-based inks, you're looking at, just buildup of, dangerous molds and dust and stuff like that. So I started noticing after long sessions, like I go through like sessions where I just hunt and kind of collect and sort images. And if I'm flipping through these old books and magazines for a couple hours, I started noticing like I started sneezing a lot. My fingertips kind of started feeling a little funny, and then it
oh wow.
was even lick. I was licking my fingertips, and my tongue kind of
Oh
got
no.
numb. And I was like, okay, why am I feeling there's like something dangerous in these, in these books? And so that's when I started kind of researching it. So now I'm a little bit more careful when I look through. I think anything pre 1950, you're really running some risks of some dangerous chemicals being in the inks there.
Yeah, that did not even come into my mind as a consideration. Um, but it certainly makes sense for that time. Which it actually reminded me of how I forget when, but back when they used to make the watches that have like the glow in the dark on the hands and whatnot in like the
Mhm.
I want to say 30s or 40s, but I could be wrong. But it was definitely before the 2000s. In any case,
Mhm.
when they had
Mhm.
women working on the line, the paintbrushes they used were so fine that it was like the width of a hair because you had to like
Oh,
really apply the paint very very carefully. The problem
yeah.
was they used a radioactive element in the paint, and so in order to make sure that
Oh,
the
wow.
brush kept its consistency, the women would like flick it in the paint and then have to lick it and then put it in the paint as
Yeah.
again, and over time
Oh,
that exposure gave a lot of them, if not all of them, cancer.
oh no. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I didn't, I used to worry about it with oil paints. Literally today, they still sell oil paint, that says on it causes reproductive disorders. Um,
Wow.
yeah, like still today, if you go into an art store and you look, especially like titanium white oil paint, a lot of them will still say like could cause like reproductive disorders, babies to be born with deformities. It's like, what the hell? And I got pregnant. I had the paint in my studio, and I went and I looked, and I was like, oh my God, like I have a bunch of tubes and paint in here that say cause reproductive disorders. And look, can cause cancer.
Wow.
Yeah, they still sell it.
4.9 stars though.
Yeah,
I mean, look at this.
right?
That's worth it. That's worth it. That's pretty good.
It's very cute. It was very cute. Um, yeah, so I kind
Wow.
of freaked out. I threw everything away. I thought I was using such a safe material now with collage. And yeah, then it was like, oh, I don't know. I'm feeling a little bit weird after 2 hours of flipping through these really old magazines. What's going on here? And so I did some research on that, and I was like, okay, I need to be careful.
Yeah, I wouldn't have considered that that there would be an occupational hazard to collaging, but yeah, there it is.
I know, there is. Yep.
Wow. Hmm.
So
No, I
this
mean,
is like, sorry, what you're looking at there is kind
mhm.
of the new technique that I'm working on, where it's still the same idea of like those collages we looked at the beginning, but instead of using the same image, I'm using like different images but of similar compositional structure and subject matter.
I was gonna say I did notice that there's no way this is the same um, image, but
Yeah.
the way that it meshes, it still kind of has the outline of a face. Um, so the placement is clearly still deliberate.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Do
it
you
feels,
yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
Do you think that you would ever work with any different kind of medium when it comes to collaging besides like prints and pages from magazines, like taking like film photos or like Polaroids or anything like that?
Yeah, I actually would like to expand the materials I work with. I mean, I started doing some collages from postcards. That's not, I guess, super different, but um, one of the things I came across at a show I was at recently was somebody who was working with like ads from bus shelters.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to talk to them to ask them where they got them. And she said she had a connection, but then she secretly told me, no, it's actually really easy to steal these right from the bus shelters.
Oh yeah.
She told me how to unlock the little things. So I mean, I'd like to like start working with, to satisfy my need for this bigger art. I'd like to start working with maybe like old film posters or possibly, bus shelter ads or even um, like like old billboard ads possibly. Um, yeah, I like the way Slime Sundays made like a physical version of one of his collages I saw there. That was kind of neat. I experimented recently with.
This one right here. Yeah.
Oh,
This one he took like
yeah.
from the walls of streets, I believe.
Yes, that's pretty cool. But I'd like to like almost make some like collage sculptures. Um,
Hmm. What would that look
Again,
like?
I've seen this on Instagram. People are making collage sculptures, not necessarily like kinetic ones that move, but I don't know, like I played around with folding them into like shapes. Like there's one piece I have that is it looks like it's almost like a diamond. So I just folded it into like a diamond shape. I'm not sure if it's no, it'll be on my Instagram. I don't think I posted it
Would it be a recent
on
post?
there. Uh, no. If you go on my Instagram though and you type, let's see. Yeah, no, it wouldn't be that recent. Um,
So you made it into like an actual like a 3D shape?
yeah, and I had an idea that it'd be really neat to repeat that, like to make many of them, and maybe have many of them kind of sitting on top of like another kind of mosaic style collage, um, and play around with the idea of like depth, and dimensionality, like three-dimensionality in collage work. So I don't know. It's just something I'm kind of
Oh,
exploring now.
I love these books. They're so great. I love the quality of the paper.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The sketchbooks, yeah.
Yeah. That's the one.
I loved doing that, having all of my work in one book. And then I can't keep everything. So then I started like listing them for sale, and so many of the ones specifically from that book that you're looking at sold. And so you rip them out, you rip the page out, and you like whatever mount it or just send it off as is. And it's just so sad now. Like now the book is all gone. There's like 3 pages left.
Yeah, but on the bright side, there's so many more people out there that now get to enjoy it.
I know. I've always been this way, literally since high school. Like, I would do a painting, and like a friend would ask for it, or like my uncle would say, "Oh, I want to buy it from you," or whatever, and I'd be like, "No, like, I want to part with my art. It's so bad."
No, I mean, I get it. There's an attachment to a piece. You don't want
Yeah,
to let go of it. Even
yeah.
though like, okay, well, yeah, maybe I'll have rent this month because of it, but it's
I
mine
know.
and I made it and it's my inspiration and you can't have it.
Yeah, yeah. But now I've got so much that, like I want to get rid of all the old stuff, but I really still am attached to anything I made kind of within the last year. I typically don't want to sell it.
I think that's a
So
valid
funny.
reaction. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's totally fair to want to guard it and keep it for yourself, because at the end of the day, you put a piece of yourself in it. You know,
Yeah.
you don't want
Yeah.
to give it freely.
Yeah. And I really enjoy it. Like it's just something I like to look at and keep around. Like my studio walls usually have kind of my more recent work hanging up, and I just actually enjoy looking at it. So anyway, I had a show recently, and this kind of new technique that I'm going into where I use multiple images that are different but similar. Um, I kind of came to that a little bit by accident. I made this really big piece of Renaissance portraits, 16 Renaissance portraits that I collaged into this like mosaic technique. And I brought it to the exhibit I was in, and I priced it like super high. I priced it not to sell,
And it's sold anyway.
and it sold. Yeah. So that kind of told me that, yeah, I mean, I'm onto something. Like, I got a lot of positive feedback for that specific piece. And the fact that it sold tells me that I'm kind of onto something maybe with this new technique. Yeah, if you look, it's that piece right there. Yeah, that one.
I was gonna say from afar, like zoomed out, it oh, I don't know why it blacks out now. It looked like gave me like hints of like Mona Lisa for some reason. There's something
Yeah,
about the figure.
that's so funny. A lot of people say that. Like my brother as well. He's like, "Oh, that's Mona Lisa, isn't it?" Like so many people at the show said, "Is Mona Lisa in there?" And it's funny, she's not, but I guess it has that Mona Lisa look. I mean, it is all Renaissance portraits, so they did, kind of all have that style. But
Mm.
there is like 4 Da Vinci drawings in there. So that's it's kind of neat that I don't know, people pick that up.
Yeah, and I noticed that it's not like at the edges here, it's not just flat all
Mm,
around.
yeah.
Did how did you get that? Like, is it just like you cut out the squares for like really carefully? Like is because there's a backdrop to this, right? Like you glued this on a sheet of paper.
Hmm.
I'd imagine that you made a grid on.
No. So, well, actually, no. I do draw lines. I don't make a grid. I draw just some horizontal lines. So the technique again is to cut many images vertically first and make like these kind of sub collages where it's just them cut into vertical stripes.
Mm.
So then you have like kind of 4 long collages made of vertical stripes. And then you cut those collages into horizontal stripes, and then you reassemble it. So when I went to reassemble this, I didn't like the reason why those edges came out that way, if I had lined them all up, I didn't like the resulting kind of pattern of color.
Mm-hmm.
So I shifted them because the pattern of squares, just the pattern of color looked better if they were shifted this way.
I
My
see.
plan originally was, lay it out to get a nice patterning of colors across the surface. And then later I'll cut these edges off, right? Just like, whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
then I ended up liking the edges. The edges kind of looked interesting and gave it like a woven look almost.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it like it reminds me of like a quilt of some sort.
Yeah. These pieces feel like quilts. They move when you pick them up. They move like a piece of chainmail or something. They've got
Mm-hmm.
this
Mm-hmm.
like, feeling to them. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny how you tried to play chicken with the art world in terms of pricing. Like,
Right?
let's fine. Like, you guys want to do this? Like, by all means.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, thank goodness. Like, I mean, I was happy to sell it, but honestly, I'm still kind of sad it's sold. It's like, oh, my husband's like, just make a new one. I'm like, you know how hard it was to find those images? Like I like like I gotta find the portraits, but they all have to be kind of similar, and like it's not easy. It's not easy to make these.
Yeah, no, I'd imagine not. Otherwise, everyone would be doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
But no,
yeah, it's very, 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 very good piece, and I think the Mona Lisa just comes out because like that's the most recognizable portrait on the face of the planet. So
yep,
naturally, like your eye just makes all the shapes, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that reminds me of that.
yep, for sure. Yep.
Do you think that you would still want to work with um that kind of like that medium or that source of inspiration in terms of like taking paintings of old and remixing them like this, or
Yeah, definitely. I'm that's kind of what I'm doing now. I'm working on a series of both physical and digital collages that really are kind of analyzing, I guess, art history and patterns, genres in art history.
yeah, I guess the one that might be the hardest to do to work with rather would be, or at least I would imagine would be like surrealism, like maybe something from like Salvador Dali, just because of how um not inorganic but like how fantastical like the elements are in his works, that it's hard to
Mhm.
like cut out a cube or like a square of it and get like a clean cut just because of like how many like wavy lines and whatnot there is. But I don't know, I'm just kind of like guessing here.
Yeah, well, it's funny because like before I did this Renaissance one, I did a larger one that was really just haphazard. It was I'm an art teacher, so I have a lot of access to old books and whatnot. But there was this calendar, these pages from these old calendars that I had been saving in my classroom, honestly, for like 15 years. And I've never used them. Now with digital, like all the time I show art. It's not anywhere on my feed. I haven't posted it.
Oh,
But
gotcha.
I'm always showing art history, but with digital and Google Classroom and projectors and everything, like I find I barely use any of these old things anymore, right? So I took them home and I just cut them all up. I just cut them all up into squares and organized it the way I'm doing with the other image. um and it's big, it's massive, it's like 3 by 4 feet, but there's no kind of hidden image because I didn't plan picking images that were all similar. I just said, like, let's just throw them all on a page and see how it looks. But there was, like, I'd say in these like 16 images, there was like 4 or 5 portraits. And so it's on my wall. It's still on my wall right now. I'm looking at it, and I didn't notice it at first, but after like looking at it for a few months, I'm like, oh wait, I can kind of see those 4 portraits, like a latent image, like hidden in this mosaic. And that was like, oh my God, what if I actually just looked, like just did 16 portraits? Um, so it's kind of where the idea spawned from, I guess, was this just kind of random collage I made one day. Like sometimes I do that, I don't know what I'm gonna make, and I just feel like cutting up paper and gluing it down. I'm just gonna go like hack away at something and not worry about the outcome. And like that's kind of what happened with this like mosaic type collages that I'm working on now. But that
Interesting.
being said, I actually really like the first one I did that really doesn't have kind of a hidden latent image. It really is just a bunch of, recognizable pieces from art history. Like if anybody looked at it really closely, they'd be like, oh yeah, I see some like Van Gogh in there, and oh, I see like a Klimt square, and like if you know anything about it, you would recognize like a lot of the artists in there. But I guess what I'm getting at is that I'm really liking this kind of abstraction now, which is something I've never been drawn to. I literally don't like abstract art. but um but I like that these collages are somewhat abstract at first glance, but then when you look closer, there's actually a bunch of really recognizable things in it.
Yeah, that's I'm definitely there with you in terms of like abstract art. I can't it's I have to be very selective with it. Like I went to the Toronto Art Fair a couple months back, and a lot of the pieces that like you could just tell that they were abstract. I just couldn't. I don't know. There's something about them that I can't. I find a hard time connecting with the piece there. Um,
Yeah.
but rearranging that in a collage form, it's kind of like giving into the chaos to an extent, I'd imagine,
Yeah.
instead of trying
What
to like
art
make
fair
order
did you
from
go
it.
to?
It was the believe it was just called the Toronto Art Fair. It was at the Metro Toronto Convention Center.
Oh yes, yeah,
I
that
think.
one. Yeah,
Yeah, this one
yeah,
right here. Yeah.
yeah, that's a great fair. I love that fair.
Yeah, there were some interesting pieces. I'd never been to an art fair before, so I had no idea what to expect, and I did not realize just how much of a push there would be for um, people to be like showcasing their works to specifically to sell them. Because as I said, I'd never been to one before, so I didn't really know what to expect. But like just every third person that I passed, like either was working on getting their checkbook or like negotiating with the artist and whatnot. And I didn't realize that it would be such a commercial space, but I still found moments of like where I could still enjoy the art. I didn't realize just how much discussion there was around like actually buying these pieces. I figured it was just gonna be like an exposition of some sort, but
Yeah.
just about every square inch of the space that had some kind of like work of art. It was to the point where I actually had like sensory overload. I had to like sit down
Mhm.
for a minute because
Yeah.
I was like live tweeting it, taking photos throughout the whole time. I had my camera with me, and I was just like, okay, I need to sit down. This is like that's great. I love that I'm exposed to all this stuff, but boy, that there's a lot more than I bargained.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean about the sensory overload. I get that. I get that as well. When I go to this show, actually in particular, I usually go every year. Um, yeah, it's a little overwhelming. I think the show is really geared towards designers and interior decorators, and obviously, the galleries want to sell their artists' work. Um, yeah, it's all business at that show for sure.
Yeah, I didn't realize it going in. Still had a good time. I was exposed to a lot of art that I would have otherwise not been able to see in person. Some of my favorites is actually from this gentleman here who took these wireframes. Let me see if I can find it here. He took this all these various dyed cloths. Or actually, I think that's the name of the gallery. I don't believe that's the name of the artist.
Oh
Um,
yeah, that is. Hmm.
Yeah, he had pieces like this where some of the cloths were like had like a single color to them, but the way that it played with the light, it gave it that level of depth. There was one that I might even be able to find the photo of because I still have a bunch of them floating around. I took thousands of photos that day, so it was a little bit too much. But yeah, I was a really big fan of the pieces here. And then there was obviously there was one piece or one stand that really stood out to me because of how like just overtly commercialized it was. Like you could tell that the whole thing was just set up to get this into as many hands as possible. I think it was a gallery from New York that was showing off the work of, I think his name is Mr. Brainwash.
Oh
I don't
yeah.
know if you're at all
Hmm.
familiar.
I am totally.
What do you think? What are your thoughts?
I don't know. Oh, like of Mr. Brainwash?
Hmm. I'm guessing
I
you've
don't
seen the
know.
documentary.
I've seen the documentary. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to tell. Is he Banksy? Did he rip off Banksy? Um, yeah, super, I don't know, commercial but unoriginal, like just taking a mishmash of like pop art and
Hmm.
Basquiat and Banksy and mashing it all together and yeah. Um, no, you know what I think? Probably Mr. Brainwash is a really smart businessman.
Hmm.
I was at a show recently, the fair. What was it called again? Artist Project. And did you go to that? You should go to that next year.
No, is it also in Toronto or?
It is in Toronto. It was at the X. It was at the Better Living Center at the X. Um, Next year it'll be at the X as well, but it'll be in that bigger, newer building at the X. So I'm gonna be doing it again next year. I was there this year. The guy beside me had these big abstract paintings that looked like they were like of the ocean or something. So just very plain, kind of blue bottom, white top, minimal brushwork, maybe a thin line of brown where the horizon line is. And he had about 12 of them on display. He had a big booth. So, like, you have to pay for these booths. So I know he paid a lot of money. He was selling them for, I think, about $1,600 each, something like that. They all pretty much look the same, minor variations in the blue or the white area.
Mm,
But so I was talking to him during the show, like day 2 or 3, and I was like, oh, he'd sold, maybe 5 or 6 of them. I said, oh, you're doing well, and tell me about these paintings. Like, what is this? What's your inspiration? They look like, seaside or ocean view of something, and he's like, oh my God, Erin. He's like, do you think I give a crap about these paintings? He goes, I don't give a crap about these paintings, but they sell. I sell like 200 of them a year. Blah, 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 blah. They're not creative. Blah, blah, blah. I do my creative stuff at home. He goes, but the people love this. They want to buy it, so I make it. And I feel like maybe that's a little bit
wow.
of what Mr. Brainwash has done, Like he knows it's gonna sell. He knows what's kind of trendy and hot. Um, People who don't know a lot about art won't know that this is like a kind of amalgamation of like 3 former pop artists or whatever. And I don't know. I don't know Mr. Brainwash, but I get the feeling that he's kind of like that guy who is beside me,
Mm.
where, he's more of a business artist than an artist. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense, and that's essentially the impression that I got from the documentary. I mean, there's that one scene where right before his exhibit, he made the promise to everyone attending, or at least like to the first 100 or like 200 people or something, that they would get 100% like one of one unique print from his, and all they did was they took like, I don't know, the classic Marilyn Monroe photo or like Jimi Hendrix or what have you, like any of these like pop art icons. Um,
Yeah.
and he just kind of because he had an injury, I think like a couple days before the show, so he was in a wheelchair, and he had one of his helpers like push him as he had like 10 of these like lined up on the floor, and he took like these 2 spray paint cans and just kind of splattered them with little touches of paint, and there you go, now you got a unique print. And that's,
Yeah.
yeah, that's basically like the impression I get off him. I mean, his, spoiler alert for those that haven't seen the documentary, Mr. Brainwash, he's one of the first people, or like one of the only people I think, that was
Mhm.
outside of like Banksy's circle that was allowed in to observe him and to document
Mhm.
his work.
Mhm.
And I think he took like inspiration from some of the motifs there, but at the end of the day, it kind of latched on to his, I mean, for lack of a better word, it seemed like the man was mentally ill to an extent where he was like
Mhm.
taking video of every single moment of his family's life, to the point where he was
Mhm.
hoarding like hundreds and hundreds of videotapes of everything from like brushing the teeth to getting the kids ready to school and family
Mhm.
events and whatnot. And he kind of took that same manic energy and applied it to art, and just went buck wild with it. And now he's living full time as an artist, I'd imagine,
Mhm.
selling stuff
Mhm.
like this. Which, I mean, fine, like whatever. People like what they like.
Yeah,
By all means,
for sure.
enjoy it. Um,
Mhm.
but part of me is just very, I don't know. I'm not a fan. Can't say I'm a fan. It seems like he just kind of dipped in and out of the street art scene, got what he wanted from it, and then decided to commercialize the hell out of it. Um, and it's funny because the documentary is set up as like this. From the outside looking in, you're thinking, "Oh, this cool. This is gonna be like following Banksy." It's like, no, no, no. It's actually following Mr. Brainwash the whole time, and then the story becomes
Yeah.
about him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he kinda tricked us there, didn't he?
A little bit,
Yeah.
yeah. And I did find the photography that I did of that show, and that cloth piece I found.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, I was a real big fan of these, just because like, I don't know, there's something about them that just makes me feel nice just looking at it. Just like the curves and the color combination and how warm it is.
I agree. Oh, yeah. I love these. The color combinations, and the shapes as well, they do have a vintage style that I'm always drawn to. Um, kind of like 70s design or something like that in there. These are
It just looks like
gorgeous.
a cake. Like I want to stick a fork in it, you know?
Ah! Yeah. Oh my gosh, they're beautiful.
Yeah, there were some really inventive pieces there. So like even with like the commercialization of it all, I still came away from the show being just impressed. Just impressed at the range that people had uh throughout the show, regardless of the medium. There was one that really stood out for me. I'm gonna see if I can find it. It was essentially like I think lenticular is the name for it. This
Mhm.
person had made a print, or not a print, but like an actual piece with like I think like some other glass or something on top of it, um, where it was essentially two like a vase and a vase standing beside each other, but the vases themselves were handmade specifically so that when you put them together, you would see the silhouette of either a man or a woman. And
Mm.
there was an added layer where because they added that like lenticular frame on top of it,
Mhm.
as you moved from left to right, you would actually see the portrait change from the figure of a man to the figure of a woman, which is just so mind blowing to me because like first of all, you have to make sure that the vases are like perfect in terms of their proportion, and then you have to make it so that as the person transitions going from left from left to right, the figures would change, which I have no
Mhm.
idea how like the amount of effort that would have to go into making something like that. But it just it blew me away. I was like, I can't believe that someone actually took the time to make something like this.
Oh, that's really interesting. It's like an optical illusion.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I love actually seeing pieces like that. What you're saying reminds me of,
Oh, here it is.
there's one. Oh yeah. Oh, do you have a video where you can see the
Unfortunately
transition?
not. I'd only taken the photos as I was a bit stretched for time, but
Mhm.
this is essentially what it looked like. And so in the middle you kind of see the blend between the two, but I
I
think if you
see
went on
it,
the left
yeah.
side, you would see like a man, and then if you transition to the right, you would see a woman. And it's just a photo of these vases or vases or whatever the correct
Yeah.
vernacular is, um, and then they added that like extra layer of I don't know if it was film or some plexiglass or whatnot, but yeah, it was just mind blowing.
That's really neat. I like the idea of kind of a hidden image, and again, going back to the mosaics, I think that's what I'm exploring, a little bit of that hidden image. And for me, like, this piece you're showing and what I'm trying to do, it does speak to like our digital landscape, right? Like being kind of overloaded with a lot of visual imagery online on your phone all the time. And what we're seeing versus kind of what we're really seeing. What are kind of the hidden images in what we're seeing, or what are the underlying messages in all these images that we're scrolling past. um yeah, that like, I love that. Have you seen those paintings that are like, the canvas is essentially like a bunch of triangles, like, not triangles, how do I explain it? Like, if you looked at the painting from the side, it's a zigzag. It's not a flat painting. And on one side of the those zigzag kind of 3D shapes, they've painted one scene, but on the other side they've painted another scene, so that when you view it, if you kind of move back and forth, you move back and forth from seeing like what's painted on one side versus what's painted on the other side.
Oh, I know what you're getting at. Yeah, I understand. I don't think
Yeah,
I've I
sometimes he
yeah.
his work was often at Art Toronto that you went to, and sometimes they're like doors. So if you move really slowly, it looks like the doors are shutting, but it's all just like your movement. Yeah, those are the ones, I
So
think.
it's kind of like this, but there was so there was actually an installation that moved where it was like so it wasn't getting like the same effect as having it like be static, but this was one where it would make like a transition essentially.
Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, that's neat.
Yeah, and I did
And then there's
find
another
the
artist too. who does these, like, sculptures of, like, kinda garbage, but then he, like, shines a light on them, and the shadow, like, is actually, like, a portrait or something, but you look at the sculpture, and it just looks like random, like, garbage, but
Oh
he's
yes, yeah,
lined
I
up
know
all
what you
the
mean.
little.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's lined up all the little pieces, and then you see, an image. Oh, this is really nice, I love this. Is that flat, or is that sculptural?
No, so that's actually that would be a sculpture, and it just I love like seeing gradients. I don't know what about it. When I actually first learned Photoshop, like learning how to like do gradients that fade in and out. Um, there's just something about that transition that really appealed to me. But this is
Mm.
yeah, this would be like I guess he set up like some kind of a wireframe and put cloth around it. And I don't know if he painted
Oh,
it
wow.
like before or after the fact. I have no idea what the process was, but it just reminded me of
Yeah,
like these same pieces, but just kind of taken to a
right.
different level there.
Yeah, there's something very soothing about looking at both of those things.
Yeah, and then yeah,
And,
here's
and
the
they are
collage.
they are abstract too, so you do, like, a little bit of abstract.
A little bit, yeah. I'm very particular with it.
Right.
I can't get into like the crazy stuff, but something like this, like where it's just like nice like lines and color. I'm like, yeah, this is nice. Something like this though, I don't even know if it's I guess it's abstract, yeah.
Yeah,
Um, but like yeah, I look at it and I'm like, oh, I like the textures. The
yeah,
form and the color. I don't know if I'd like buy this to hang it anywhere, but it's all right. It's nice to look at.
yeah. I know, I hear you. What's that artist's name again? David, how do you spell his last name? Because I'm gonna have to do a little research here.
Oh, for the collage there.
Yeah.
This would be
Right. Let's write it down.
David. Oh, let me pull it up here. David Hoffus,
Office.
who is actually
Okay.
Canadian, I believe.
Ooh, nice. National Gallery of Canada.
Yeah, I guess he's got a posting there.
Okay.
Yeah, David Hoffus. He was born in
Okay.
Montreal in '66. Yeah, and he still looks like he's still exhibiting, or at least he wasn't back in 2013 and 2018 as well. So I'm sure that his stuff gets posted around everywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, seeing them in person was really cool. Obviously, it wasn't like the original, um, but even this car print here, I liked. It was huge. Um,
Wow. Really, eh? Huge. Huh.
yeah, probably like 2 meters across or so, or like close to, anyways.
Wow. And these are very cool.
Yeah, now
There's
that I'm
a,
actually
a
looking back,
type of
there's actually quite a few collage artists. But sorry, go ahead.
well, like I think somebody said to me the other day, like, I love your obsessiveness. And like I'm getting that now. Like I didn't think of myself as obsessive before, but I guess when you get into cutting like hundreds of little squares, I can see why people think it's obsessive. And yeah, there's an obsessiveness to his collages as well. They're tiny little squares, it looks like. That's incredible.
Oh yeah, no, certainly. Obsessive would definitely be the right word for it, and not like in a bad context. It's just you have to
Yeah.
be. I would imagine you have to be like extremely intentional with the placement of every single square line or what have you.
Yeah. 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 Well, that's what I like. That's personally like what I love about my process. Like I love that repetitive nature of cutting like in a similar way and organizing it in a similar way. Like part of the reason why I do work like this is because I actually enjoy that process. I find it kind of meditative. And that's why, as I said earlier, I do make mistakes because I can kind of get caught up in just, cut, glue, cut 10 lines, glue 10 pieces, cut 10 lines, glue 10 pieces. And I start kind of forgetting what I'm doing and my mind is wandering, and that's when I do make some mistakes because I get kind of a little caught up in the meditative process sometimes. But
Yeah, no,
yeah,
I'd
certainly
imagine
there's
so.
something. Yeah, there's something to that, and I feel like that speaks even to I don't know, personal life experience, the repetitiveness of daily life, right? Like the patterns that we all fall into.
Yeah, speaking of which, that actually reminds me of another piece that I saw, and I believe this one was made of Lego. Um,
Oh, wow.
and you can kind of see like how between the left and the right they would fit into each other basically like perfectly
Yeah.
if you just flipped it. But like once again, I had no idea how, first of all, like someone could like make the, like you would have to actually like section off the bricks and cut them with, I mean, I don't even know what kind of a tool you would use to make the perfect cut,
Mhm,
because it's not as if like they lay down like 100 by 100 grid and then just put a bunch of blocks on it. There's an angle to them, so I don't know how they got started with that. But even
mhm,
then, how do you make a complementary piece that so perfectly aligns with it? Because it's not as if like you just built it and then you like just kind of popped it off the other. Like you wouldn't be able to do that. But like yet again, another example of someone that probably in the same vein as like your creative process, where you're just kind of like going one by one by one by one, that it'll be easy to get lost in. Because I genuinely have no idea how someone could make something like this and make it essentially symmetrical.
mhm. Yeah, no, that looks like it takes a a lot of work, and I would imagine there probably is, like you asked me earlier, some numbering or something that goes on there. This, like, hurts my brain to look at.
Right?
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there were pieces like this which I didn't understand.
Yeah, I feel like pieces like this are meant to be, like a spectacle. It's just like, wow, like there's this huge blown up thing here. Like, I don't know.
I guess.
Like,
Yeah.
because where are you gonna put that? Like, no one's gonna put that in their house.
Yeah, and how did they like did how did they even construct it? Is it like, because you would have to see the piece before you obviously like you send it out to whichever fair you're going to. So you must have had the space for it. Like so, like what you got like
Yeah,
an air hanger in your
right?
backyard that you could just blow this up in.
Yeah, yeah.
And then of course there's the classic um,
Ah.
art student.
Consumer angst pieces.
I I guess, yeah. I don't know. I really like the bag. I would have liked to have seen that, like, see IKEA sell these bags. Like that looks pretty cool. But
Yeah,
otherwise, like they just took a bunch of utensils and threw them in a bag. And I
yeah.
I realize now as I go further and further into the art world, as someone who doesn't really have a background in it, um, that this is just kind of par for the course. That pieces like this exist, and um,
Yeah.
whether or not you like them, this is just how some people create art, which I just can't I can't understand it. I don't know what kind of headspace you would have to be in to make something like this. Because there were kids like walking around because it wasn't like clearly titled. They're like, oh, I could just like
Mm-hmm.
take a spoon or something. It's like, no, no, no.
Yeah,
This is like an actual legit work of art
it's
that someone
art.
took the time to make. Which yeah, I mean, I guess it's technically art.
Well, I teach art, and we do teach some. I do teach some art history. To keep it simple for young teenage students, I kind of wrap it up in a nutshell like this. Like, to me, this is Duchamp's urinal, like
Yep,
just an
yep, yep.
iteration of Duchamp's urinal. And you had aesthetics and technical skill be what art was valued by for thousands of years. And then you had, Duchamp come along. Basically, there's some other things that led to Duchamp, obviously, but you had this huge shift with conceptual art where the concept matters more than the aesthetics, matters more than the technical skill. So it blamed Duchamp really for killing us valuing technical skill and aesthetics in favor of concept. And I don't know, I feel like we're still, as artists in the art world, we're still navigating those muddy waters. Like, what matters more? Is it concept? Is it technical skill and aesthetics? And there's, I feel like we're still feeling the effects of that. There's still that battle going on. And, there's kind of a lot of people are kind of on one side or the other. I mean, I appreciate it all as well, but I don't know. I mean, actually really old Renaissance art, but I still feel like I'm tied more to the old camp of no, I like to see some technical skill and aesthetics. But, I do find conceptual art interesting. This does, when I look at this, make me think about consumerism and makes me think about, our nasty relationship with China. They just keep shipping over like disposable products and we just keep using them for a year and then throwing them in the landfill. I think about these things, but I don't want this in my house.
Yeah. Right? I've
So,
got enough spoons already. I don't need more.
yeah. And yeah, it's totally like, I mean, I could do that myself. I probably have something like this sitting around my house right now, but it's like a bag of shoes or something that I'm about to take back to Goodwill.
Yeah, because like I totally understand where like the spectators of art, when they like look at a piece, they're like, oh well, like I could have done it, or like my kid could have done that, or my dog could have done that, and that's like a fairly cheap cop out, but I understand where that instinct for that commentary comes from. Um, the conclusion that I've come to at the end of the day is it's if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. But there's something to be said for art that resonates with a mass group of people or touches upon certain themes of the human experience that allows it to be enjoyed by a bigger audience, or just more people, um,
Yeah.
because it touches on like some universal things that we can all kind of identify with, which is why works of Shakespeare and the Iliad, and all those like stories, and the Bible being the chief one, big one of them,
Yeah.
because they identify something that we can all, to an extent, relate to, and there
Right.
is a certain value in that. So the more like segmented, more specific, more in tune with this one person's life experience, like the more that they kind of self-insert themselves into their art, that kind of it gets harder to for a mass audience to actually consume and enjoy. So it's not necessarily like a good or bad thing. It just, you know, if you're able to touch on those themes and you're able to have like that technique, like that's the kind of audience that you're going to cater to. Otherwise, if you want to do like an interpretive dance routine, with like a paragraph long of text that people have to read before they really understand what it's about,
Yeah.
that's going to speak to a much, much slimmer audience. Both things are art at the end of the day. It's just, depends on what kind of statement, I guess, you want to make, or what that creation means to you.
Yeah, I heard somebody say this one time, I can't remember who, but it sums it up perfectly for me. Work like this IKEA piece or conceptual art is art for artists.
Hmm.
That's the only people who are going to understand it, is people who are already artists and studied art history and understand conceptual art and understand like blah blah blah. The average person who does not know anything about art is probably not going to enjoy that IKEA bag.
Yeah, probably
It's
not.
art for artists, right? And it's actually off-putting to the average consumer. And
Hmm.
I think negatively, it creates this very kind of exclusivity around art. Oh, you're just not deep enough to get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've never liked that. I don't. I it's it comes off as posturing, as if like
Yeah.
you have to have some kind of like art history degree or have this entire like wealth of knowledge in order to
Yep.
appreciate it. But I mean, my rule of thumb is like if if it resonates with me and I like it, then I consider it good art. That's
Yep.
that's really like basically it. Because otherwise, like if like I said, if I have to like read a paragraph in order to understand it, that's where you lose me.
Exactly.
I can't, as a consumer. It's just um, there's not any way for me to kind of uh, enjoy it in a real way. Now it's like, okay, now I'm doing like an art lesson, and that's not what I came here for. I came here
Yep.
to see some good art.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And the artist, or sorry, like I love this quote by Duchamp. I have like a love-hate relationship with Duchamp.
Hmm.
But he says the viewer completes the work. And like I like that line. I don't believe it fully. I think sometimes artists make art just from themselves, but the viewer is the one at the end of the day who's going to decide what it means to them, right? The artist can put whatever intention they want into their work, but you can't control what the viewer is going to think of it. Um, you can try to guide them, I guess, and in a certain way with what you show, but the viewer is going to bring their own opinions and experiences to the work, and you can't control that, right? So,
Yeah, the moment that it goes out into the ether, now it becomes a matter of public ownership, and now it's not up to the artist to define what it is. It's up to everyone else to look at it and make an interpretation. And if enough people like coalesce around a single interpretation, then that kind of becomes, the story of that piece. But otherwise, like you said, it's always just a matter of like negotiation, and it happens organically in a way.
it's funny because I talk to my students sometimes, and I'd like to know your opinion about this. But I'll have a student who's like, they'll create something that maybe looks really expressive and angry and angsty. Maybe it's got lots of black and red and sharp lines and aggressive, shapes, and maybe even, a faint image of a person screaming or crying, or, like, this is just an example I'm fabricating, but, then they'll say to me, well, like, it's about the joy I'm feeling. And I'll be like, well, but you're using all these dark lines and aggressive and angsty, shapes, and, even a hint of a, yeah, but that's what I consider like joyful. And, I'll talk to them about like kind of their personal symbol systems, but also understanding how the audience is going to receive it. What does the majority of the world associate with the use of black and red and art, or those kinds of sharp lines, or that kind of expression? Like, you can say it means that to you, but you still have to have an awareness of what probably the world at large is going to read this as. And you can't, like, some of them will just disregard that. Well, I don't care what other people think. Well, that's okay, but you need to still, as an artist, be aware probably of what you're eliciting or inciting in the minds of your viewer. And you can't just disregard that we associate, that the world mostly associates a red with passion or love or anger or violence or blood, or,
Hmm.
like all these things. Like, you can't just disregard that those associations are tied to those things because for you they're not. You know what I mean? What do you think of that?
Yeah, no, there's certainly truth to that, and I understand the instinct of your students, because it's we've all been teenagers. We all know what it is to want to flip the finger to the system or to parents or what have you, to convention. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I understand having the need or the desire to want to do something that kind of stands in the way of that, and tries to make new inroads with that. But at the same
Yeah.
time, as you said, there are certain universal symbols, um, or colors or shapes or figures that will elicit certain responses. So I don't think it's something that, and going back to what you said earlier, like there's some pieces that are made for like specifically just like for the artist and themselves, and then there's other pieces that, you can clearly see that the audience was put in mind in the creation process. Um, Having an awareness of both is, I think, that would be like the ideal balance, because at the end of the day, like regardless of what intention you had for the art piece, like all of that could just be like thrown out the window the moment that it's shown in a gallery, and then the interpretation takes off. It goes like, let's say in this fictitious example, it goes viral and the stories are printed and everyone's has this one blanket interpretation of it, and you're just sitting in your room being like, no, that's not at all
Yeah.
what I had meant. Like, you guys, you don't get it. But that's being able to bridge that disconnect, um is probably the
Mm-hmm.
best way to go forward without like having any negative effects to your mental health, especially
Mm-hmm.
if you're an artist that is like very I don't know, popular, or like you get a lot of exposure, because I'd imagine that being misinterpreted in a conversation is one thing, but being misinterpreted with something that you really put yourself into as a piece that is representative of your human experience, um, frustrating probably isn't even the right word for it. So
Hmm.
having that healthy balance, as you said, keeping in mind that like, okay, sure, yeah, you can use whatever colors to signify whatever emotion or shape or form or what have you, fine. But that's not going to stop the general public from having that interpretation. I mean, like, there's a reason
Yeah.
why brands like McDonald's will associate a lot of their like branding with the color red because it evokes certain
Hmm.
emotions that pertain to, I think it's like something about hunger and some other emotions,
Hmm.
but like they're very, very particular with the kind of colors that they choose because they evoke
Yeah.
a certain feeling to them. So there
Yeah.
is something
Yeah.
primal within us that is like the base building blocks of how we interpret uh, form and color, um,
Yeah.
that are kind of built, just from birth, from I guess from
Yeah.
evolution. Um,
Yeah.
like snakes
For
aren't
sure.
exactly seen as friendly, right? That's not
No.
not really a typical
Yeah.
trope. In fact, it's usually the opposite. So, yeah, it's something to keep in mind. But yeah, I don't know because there's not really like a solution to it. There's not really like a final say because art is all about interpretation,
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
multiple perspectives. So I think you're right on the money there with how you're approaching um, your students because it's like, yeah, like by all means be rebellious, have your fun, but just know like
Yeah.
at the end of the day, that interpretation is going to come from somewhere, and it
Yeah.
changes with culture, I'd imagine too, because I bet like
For
if you
sure.
go to like Southeast Asia, they have their own different interpretations of like using color to evoke anger or sadness or what have you.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. Yeah. It's just interesting to think about that. That. But I guess at the end of the day, it is a conversation. Art is a conversation, with yourself, with the past, and with potential viewers in a way, right? It really is, a singular piece of art is really part of a bigger, longer conversation. I think that's probably what keeps me coming back to art. Actually, is engaging in that conversation, in some way.
Yeah, I mean, even like just speaking from like personal experience, um, I wrote a press release for this collab that we had with abstract expressionist artists, or rather their remaining foundations. So we did one with we made a hat for the Lee Krasner Foundation, for Jackson Pollock, and Wilt Chamberlain, I believe, who was the sculptor. Um, and I remember when I was digging into Pollock's experience and his time as an artist, looking at any of his works, it's one of those pieces where it's like, oh, like my dog could have done that. And I totally understand that interpretation of it. But the more that I read about how he came about like making these pieces and what his life was like and his experience and all that, I realized there was kind of a method to the madness. But then when
Hmm.
I had actually learned that part of the reason that he became so popular was because the CIA was actively working to push his works into more galleries because they wanted to essentially give a middle finger to the Soviet Union by saying that uh, the West, America, as we know it that back then, was like the pinnacle of freedom of expression to the point where even someone like Pollock could have um, a like a main stage presence in the art world for that moment in time. Um, so part of like the appreciation that people had for his works and the value of them was certainly like organic and real, but another part of it
Hmm.
was like an actual like propaganda push by a government to make it so that his pieces were popular and people paid attention to them.
Well, I would imagine that kind of thing happens a lot, unfortunately.
Yeah, because
And
it's
even
hard to
with,
say.
well, I think of like, I don't know if you think it's similar, but like Basquiat's story a little bit. He's just a street artist. Talented, sure, yeah. I mean, expressive for sure, personal in his work, but it was really a group of, collectors that kind of discovered him and said, "We're going to elevate this guy's work," and by having the backing of like Andy Warhol and a couple other um, prestigious collectors, they kind of imbued his work with maybe more meaning and depth than maybe he even intended to put in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because that's another one of those artists that I just I understood the cultural capital that he held, and kind of like the reasons behind it, but it just seemed strange that like out of all the artists that like existed in that time, it's like why was this person catapulted to the heights of fame, and mostly like towards and also after like his death, mostly. It
Mm,
wasn't as if like he was recognized while he was alive nearly as much as he was past his death, and I think that
yeah,
also leads like some credence to his popularity in the same way that like Michael Jackson sold more records, or his estate
for
rather
sure.
sold more records after his passing.
Yeah. It's like the whole romanticization of like the live hard, die young line, right?
Yes, yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah. Um, but for Basquiat, I feel a little bit sorry for him because I mean, I really do feel like it was kind of, it was romanticizing this like drug addict, that we pulled off the street, right? And I don't really like that idea of like, even with Van Gogh, they tried to romanticize that he had such a tough life. He was such a tortured soul. But now you're hearing that, well, actually, his brother was really, quite financially established and really took care of his brother and gave him a place to live and bought all his painting supplies and
Hmm.
like, was it really such a tough life he had when he had, his older brother taking care of him all the time?
His wife too,
Yeah.
actually, I believe the brother's wife was instrumental in it as well. I read in some of the letters.
Oh, really? Yeah. It's just, it's funny because I think it sends the wrong message to some young artists. I remember in high school thinking, like, I'm never gonna make it as an artist because I don't have some really rough upbringing. Like, I really felt like you almost needed to have a horrible life to be a good artist. I really,
Really?
really believed that in high school. Yeah, because I mean, I discovered like the work of Van Gogh and I was obsessed. And I was obsessed certainly with Dali as well. Now, he didn't seem to have such a hard life, but he definitely seemed like this kind of, tortured soul to some extent. Even Picasso, like,
Hmm.
was angsty and like, oh, like, I don't know, obsessive and angsty. And I thought, like, I'm just not obsessive and tortured and angsty enough. Like, I have nothing to say. But it was artists actually like Matisse. Matisse is probably one of my all-time favorite artists. When I discovered him, I was like, "Oh my God." Like there is actually art that's about just like joyful things and just kind of plain everyday like nice things. I went to the AGO and there was a Barnes exhibit there and they had his painting Joy of Life, and it was the last piece in the exhibit. Yeah, that one. And went through the exhibit and it was like you said earlier, it was I was overstimulated because I had always loved impressionism and post-impressionism and all these artists, and so I was dying to see it. I went to see it, oohed and awed and whatever. Came to this piece at the end, had never seen it before in any textbooks or anything. Had kind of liked Matisse, but wasn't like, huge. And this was a massive painting at the end of the exhibit. I don't know exactly how large it is, but I would say from memory it was something like maybe 12 feet by 8 feet, maybe 10 feet by 14 feet, massive.
Oh
And I
wow.
sat there at the bench. There was a bench in front of it, and I just stared at it, and I started crying a little bit myself in the gallery. And it was the first time I had cried in front of a work of art. And the reason I cried is because I like it was called The Joy of Life, and I'm looking at this piece and I'm like, oh my God, this really is the joy of life. Like you've got lovers, you've got friends, you've got people dancing, you've got someone playing music, you've got nature, you've got animals, you've got a beautiful park scene, you've got the lake or the ocean. I'm like, this is all the things that I find joy of in life. And what a freaking relief that artists can make art just about joyful things and that it doesn't have to be these painful struggling existences, that there are artists out there who've made it focusing on joyful things. And it actually changed things for me, that moment, seeing this work of art, that I didn't have to have this tortured, you know um, life up until then to say something important in my art.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that because I totally understand where that misconception comes from. Because as you said, there are certain figures in our culture that we kind of put up on a pedestal, um, because we love to kind of live vicariously through their flaws, but also see that the scale of their work, um, is nothing short of awe-inspiring in some cases, where it just makes you think like, wow, like to get to that level of creation, to get to that level of recognition, there has to be some kind of break in, I don't know, your psychology or your personality or just your personal life or what have you, in order to achieve something like that. So I'm right there with you. I totally get the allure that, especially as a young person, that you would have, um, to want to do that, because as teenagers, we want to be edgy, we want to push
Yeah.
convention, and we like to
Yeah,
recognize the faults and embrace them. Um, and
for
and and
sure.
we shower anti-heroes with love and adoration. So
Yep.
no, I'm right
Yep.
there with you. I totally get why it has that, but at the end of the day, like, it doesn't have to be like that. In fact, like, there's plenty of great art that are made by people that are living decent lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the main one that comes to mind to me is actually someone that I had the fortune of having on the show. Um, this gentleman by the name of Ben Sack, who paints, or rather draws, these nothing short of extraordinary pieces that are
Wow.
so intricately detailed. And I don't, I to this day, I talked with the man for 3 hours and I still don't know how he's able
Wow.
to do these things. And he told me about his upbringing, how, like, he had an average everyday life, growing up in
Yeah.
I think it was the suburbs, and
Yeah.
now he gets to do this kind of stuff for a living. No crises, from what I could tell. Seemed stable.
Uh-huh.
Just
Uh-huh.
a very
Yeah.
happy, cheerful man that loved to create. Um, and yeah, it was just yet another reminder that, yeah, you could just be a nice person and still make great works of art.
Oh, good. I was following him already. Oh my gosh, yeah. His work. And he does have a grid here that I see he's used.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
recently posted one where he started working on a globe, um, which, like, wow, incredible. But it's totally in line with his work, because right now he actually does this. I think it's once a year. He goes on this cruise that I think goes, like, throughout Europe and maybe Scandinavia, where he teaches art classes to, I think it's senior citizens, on the ship there. And in his travels, like, wherever they dock, he'll go and walk about and get new inspiration from all the different architecture and everything that he sees. He's very fascinated with history.
Mm.
So I'm really looking forward to see what he makes with this globe here. But yeah, just yet another example of someone that, defies that idea that, like, you have to be some kind of broken, tortured soul, when in
Mhm.
reality, like, no, you could just be a nice person that volunteers at the old folks home or what have you, and just
Yep.
happens to make good art.
Yep. Yep, for sure. Sure. And
Right
you
on.
look at like some of the abstract art we were talking about earlier, like a lot of it is not meant to be emotionally expressive, especially like hard edge kind of op art, right? Like that's art that's really kind of based on math and science. Like it's really more of an intellectual approach to art than maybe a emotional expressive approach to art, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Like, there was this piece. I forget who it was that made it.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
I don't. I don't think. Yeah, just reading that on the left. I don't think that's Brainwash's signature, but
No, I don't think so. It kind of has a brainwash look, but not really, because it's got too much landscape and stuff in it there. But
yeah,
maybe a nod to brainwash.
a little bit. Yeah, I can see some of the elements there. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, like this, it doesn't. I don't think somebody that was like edgy and hardcore had to make this. It's more of a
No.
celebration of life and how beautiful
Yeah,
the city is.
exactly. Exactly.
Right on. Well, hey, I know we're stretched for time here, so I don't wanna keep you longer than you gotta be. Um, I appreciate you making the time today. I had a blast talking about your art, and I've been a fan for a very long time. So this has been an absolute pleasure for me.
Well, thanks, Mark. I really appreciate the invite to come on, and you guys are doing like some really great stuff here. Artists love to talk about their work, so I really appreciate you. Yeah, and sharing some of those artists with me. I've got like now a list here of some new artists to check out for inspiration. So really appreciate the deep dive and the knowledge that you already had about my work and other artists like me. Came prepared, clearly.
Right on. Yeah, no, thank you. That's what we try to do. And in terms of your socials, so people can find you at Life with Art. Would that be like all of your tags for Insta as well? I'm guessing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Perfect.
Yeah, and I try to keep a good link tree on most of my socials that'll take you to all my stuff. So, Life with
Beautiful.
Art, Erin McGean. Yeah,
Yeah. So check her out, guys. Show her some love. I'm guessing you got prints for sale as well. I saw there.
I've got prints for sale for sure.
Perfect.
Got lots of different price points there.
There you go. So yeah, have at it, guys. Show her some love, and once again, yeah, thank you for taking the time, Aaron. I really appreciate it. Wish you the best of luck with your future works. I'm really looking forward to see what you come up with next. And if you want to come back at some point in the future, we'd love to have you on because yeah, I love your work and how it's evolved over time. So yeah, it would be a pleasure to have you on again.
Definitely. Thank you, Mark. I would love to come on again.
Beautiful. Well, take care, guys. We'll see you later.
Bye, everybody.